Okay, I made a move. I moved Jim's up to 6.
Anders, you're muted.
Any objection if Jim records this? Anyone? A couple of people just came in.
I'm fine with
it. Which move did you make, Gary?
I moved Jim Scarver's strong pseudo anonymous unique identity up to position 6. I think it had been 11.
Cool. And Jim, why is that red? Is it because it's teaching or a challenge?
Yes, it's
okay. Cool. So you're going to tell us about that topic. Cool. Who's next? We also don't have to prioritize the whole list because we already have more than enough stuff to take up the rest of our time now. So consider passing. But next it is Gary's turn.
I pass.
Oh wait, you just went. I'm sorry. Next it's Amber's turn.
One moment.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sort of reminds me of the game of Go, where this round of the game ends when everyone passes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna pass. I think it looks really solid right now.
Great.
Okay. I'll pass too.
And that was Bjarka is next.
I'll pass.
Cool. And I'll pass. Did Rob pass?
I'll pass now.
Last time? Yes. Okay. And then I think Jim is the last person who hasn't passed.
Yes.
Great. We're done. Cool. That worked really well. Cool. So now we'll enter the third phase of the game where we actually just go through these activities one by one and do them. 45 minutes in and we're starting our introductions. So we can do this in whatever order. So everyone speak up, introduce yourself.
Okay, I'll start. I'm Gary Coulter, and I'm a retired educator. I spent most of my professional career in education, mathematics, computer programming, and got interested in cryptocurrency, found out about Holochain, decided it was probably going to work, came to the conclusion that there's not much I could do to help in a efficient way over there. So I found the next best thing, which was Holochain and Social Ledger. And so that's how I found myself in this community. And I guess that's enough about me.
Yeah, and thank you, Gary. And let's also combine the first two items. So introduce yourself and also how you got involved in this work, like Gary just did. And that'll make it go faster without losing anything.
Okay, well, I can go next. My name is Anton, and I've been programming for quite a while now. And over the past couple of years, my main interests have been in artificial intelligence, but that interest eventually came to a halt when I realized that it's probably not quite for me. Over the years, I've been very interested in the idea of natural currencies, and that's what led me to Holochain. I've been developing a project for the past year that is perfectly suited to run on top of Holochain.
Awesome.
I can go next. My name is Amber Gibson, and spent most of my first half of my life surfing and never thought I would be or do anything more with my life. I traveled the world and basically been an entrepreneur since I was 21. Kind of lived the life of a multimillionaire by the time I was 24, and realized that if this was life, I was going to be bored for the rest of my life. So at that time, had a really deep, profound spiritual awakening to something much more grandiose, and that led me into 4 years of advanced research across many different fields of architecture, biotechnology, nanotechnology, consciousness, advanced technologies with space applications, ancient technologies. I just basically quantum computed for about 4 years, didn't leave the computer between that and meditation. And then was like, okay, I felt like I had the world in the palm of my hands, but didn't know where I was going to go with it. And so of course I followed my heart and my intuition, and my two missions that I live every day for is architecture and design. So I'm ready to build futuristic cities, and also partaking in as a meta architect to synthesize a new operating system, and how do we actually bring all these grounded applications that are coming up in our fields to the masses and the rest of the planet. So that's how I was led to Holochain and Holo. I'm currently a co-founder of the new Earth co-governance system that's being developed with the Holochain team. Raymond Powell is working with Holochain and Holo, and is a friend of authors. And so, we've just been getting closer and closer to the bigger picture, and it looks like we've found our tribe. So here we are.
So I guess I'll go. Jim Whitescarver. I've been programming over 50 years. I'm a brain damaged information physicist wannabe. Gone through over 25 years of research in group systems and collective intelligence at NJIT. And then as a consultant in the belly of the beast, I developed securities that ran in the countries where they were legal. Barclays Capital, and my last gig was with AT&T Shannon Laboratories, including multi-factor biometric authentication and identity, and started a freetrust.net, which is sort of stagnant for developing our web of trust and strong pseudo-anonymous unique identities, which are necessary for there to be a democratic process or any consensual control among humans. And I got here because as a teenager, back in the mid-60s, I read everything, all the books I could get by Hermann Hesse. It was a guiding force in my life, and meditations. And since then, I've given up total control for no control. But I'm unworthy. But I'm here to navigate the path towards our collective intelligence.
I think that leaves Bjarka and Robert, maybe? Hope I'm not forgetting who went.
Yeah.
Should I go to?
I guess I started, so I'll go and then you can go. Yeah, so I live in Toronto, Canada. My name is Robert, obviously. You can see it in the chat. Yeah, so I guess it's how I wound up here. I'd say maybe in 2012-ish, I got hooked on the idea of also collective intelligence and how we might augment such a thing through tools as well and technology. So that's sort of been my curiosity and deepest sort of space of kind of study, even though at the time I was sort of taking a mechanical engineering program at the University of Waterloo here in Canada. And after finishing that, I actually took the metacurrency project's emerging leader labs, which is kind of another facet of things, not exactly Holochain, but at the time it's kind of like a social enterprise incubator thing that they had in New York. And that's how I met Arthur and Eric of the Holochain and metacurrency project. They were talking of it then, this thing called Scepter and Streamscapes, so there's kind of further deeper facets to the project. Sort of followed along since then. Also at the time, actually I should have said in 2012, in around that time of searching for other people interested in collective intelligence, I found a project called MetaMaps, which is an open source real-time collaborative concept mapping tool that's on the web. And so you'll see in some of my other suggestions here, I've suggested that it could be a board game for a glass bead game. And yeah, it's sort of a tool that I jumped on board with contributing to and helping to develop as a means for, as I said earlier, augmenting collective intelligence. So I guess that gets into a bit of how I wound up here. I am also part of the Holochain team, so I help with sort of different facets, the social media project, our social media team, and I'm also part of the Digital Life Collective, which both Jim and Gary are a member of as well, I'm pretty sure. Which is another facet here. I guess I'll stop there. That's good enough for now.
Okay, so my name is Bjarke, and I'm from Denmark. I used to do drug policy activism with different NGOs in Europe, and used to study political science also. But then I kind of realized that the education was molding me into becoming this kind of cogwheel of the system. So I got kind of disillusioned with that and dropped out. And since then, I've been a part of sort of a network or collective of creative people where we do visual arts and 3D animations, and we're into interactivity, and people are coding stuff on Arduinos and Raspberry Pis, and we're also working a little bit with the virtual reality and augmented reality, stuff like that. Yeah, so, and I don't know if I should take the next point also, which is how we wound up here. Is that part of this? Yeah. So I was having this discussion in a Terence McKenna group, about blockchain and democracy. And I was kind of rambling about how, blockchains isn't going to change anything unless we have a movement, because you just have competing blockchains out there and it will just be the new nations. So I'm pretty convinced that we should have some kind of movement and try to up the political system. And I think Holochain is a great place to start. So yeah, then I took kind of a rabbit hole dive into the whole thing, and it's like 4 days ago that I stumbled upon Holochain. So I still have a lot to digest, but right now we are planning to have a hackathon in I think in February in Copenhagen. So I'm looking very much forward to that. Yeah.
Yeah, that'll be great. GC is helping to plan that. So I went last on purpose because I'm doing the next section, so I'll just lead into that. And yeah, everyone else is gone. So I'm Anders, and I have a degree in psychology, and I did my master's in educational psychology and educational technology. It was actually a PhD, but I had conflicts with the administration over a poem that I wrote and left early. So I have a vendetta against the public school system, and I've also been institutionalized involuntarily 4 times. So I have another vendetta against the psychiatry system, and they're just really horrible. So I want to build systems that can be alternatives to this system, to the point of putting a lot of pressure on the original systems, or even just taking away their power and replacing them with fully consensual systems and fully distributed systems. I was also a street canvasser for about 9 months, and that was with a organization called the PIRGs, the Public Interest Research Groups, like Environment Washington, Environment America. And the problem with, and this is starting to get into the next part, the problem with those organizations is that they're centralized and they're run like a paramilitary hierarchy with scripts all the way down. And so like that was a really good experience of seeing how you can run an efficient organization and yet still have it be anti-activist, where it just burns people out. My entire team quit. I wasn't the leader, but me and my whole team quit. Our team quit the organization after they flew us to Florida. They flew me to Florida and then New Mexico, and the whole New Mexico team quit after the 2008 election because of the way that we were treated by the higher ups. So like they were treating us in ways opposite to how we were trying to get implemented as minimum standards for how employers should treat their employees. So it was a really hypocritical organization. So I have some background in organizing. I have a background in psychology and technology, and the way I got involved in Holochain and Holo, right now I am doing like online community organizing and developing the application ecosystem and working on systems for the education of application developers. So trying to just rev up this entire engine of building the Holochain application ecosystem, and also trying to increase the capacity of us to manage an online community. I hate the word manage, but have organizers being able to answer questions and things like that. And how I got involved is about 2.5 years ago. I was in Brazil, and I had basically a manic psychotic episode, and it was, I call it a shamanic death walk in this particular instance. And I visited other realms, and I had these epiphanies of where I foresaw this organization called the Transliminal Earth Alliance Meta-Narrative, or team. And it's super tongue-in-cheek. And so it's a protocol-based meta-organization where the point is to create and discover new protocols. So it produces more protocols, and it's a meta-organization of meta-organizations. So you can't join the team. You can only define your own meta-organization, which is equally meta to the team, and become a peer or meta-organization with the team. So it institutes one organization per person. And anyway, we ran into scaling problems eventually, because we had a peer-to-peer check-in system. So everyone was supposed to receive check-ins, but only a few people are willing to do check-ins. And so we didn't have enough people to do check-ins. So at this point I hypothesized, we already have a technology branch, a technology department out there. that's already part of the team, and they're already building our perfect technology for us. And like less than 2 weeks later, someone showed me Scepter, and I read the Scepter revelation document, and I was like, this is it. This is perfect. They know they're doing the same protocols as we are, but they're implementing them in technology instead of socially and linguistically. And so I went to a meeting with Art, and we were able to immediately talk shop about meta peer-to-peer protocols. And even though we were coming from totally different contexts and had never spoken before, we already had a shared language. So that was like empirical validation or verification that we were on some kind of same page, because we were able to talk about that page. And I've been trying to get more involved in the Scepter community ever since. And since September, I've been traveling around Europe, helping to run hackathons. And it's just been the best time of my life. So the next part, I'll just give as brief as possible of an overview of decentralized organizing in general, which is the overall topic that I want to have this group take, specifically because it's so meta. It's like, how do we organize this group is the question. And so we'll just keep building and building and building on that question. And it kind of always defers the question of governance in favor of open-ended politics. So decentralized organizing, like I was saying, the problem with most organizing, most like door-to-door organizing, most community organizing, most online organizing, most political organizing, is that it's centralized. So you have people who are canvassing for someone else's agenda. They're canvassing for a specific candidate, a specific organization, a specific proposal. They're not canvassing for their own passions. They're not canvassing for their own dreams. And they are not in control of the message that they're supposed to replicate. So in contrast to that, decentralized organizing tries to build a model where there's no central authority of the content of organizing. And instead, the point of the system is to be a meta system and to onboard activists as activists. So we're trying to give everyone not a specific toolkit, but we're trying to roll out many toolkits and find the best toolkits and find the best ways of getting the best toolkits rolled out so that we can create what we're replicating is enlightened activists, or like passionate activists who are well equipped to be activists for themselves or for whatever organization or movement or ideal or whatever they want to organize for. And so then you have people who are really well equipped speaking as peers instead of one person trying to organize everyone else. So like I'm a little bit in the position of facilitator right now, but all of you are really active people and all of you are taking up this context and starting to add your own things to it already. So soon we'll have a really rich shared language where I'm no longer the center. And that's what I want. A couple like little specific things I'll tack onto that before I wrap up is the binder protocol. So if you look in the decentralized intake GBG channel, the header is a really good place to start. And I would at least glance at all of those links and get a feel for what they might contain. But specifically the binder protocol is the same as the Zettelkasten protocol. It's the same as Zettelkasten is a scrap box in German, an index card box. And Hermann Hesse used an index card box, a Zettelkasten system, to write the glass bead game. So it's a very like perfectly hierarchically structured text. It's very well structured text because he used these cards to organize it. And this Excel spreadsheet we're using is another version of the same protocol. So basically what the binder protocol or the Holochain or the Zettelkasten or the card box protocol is you have a container, and inside the container you have units. You have individual pages or individual cards. And you then, between each organizer has their own box. So you have multiple organizers and each has their own container full of informational units. And then you trade those units back and forth and you introduce new units to the network. And so this is a peer-to-peer way where there's no center required. It's just an economy of ideas where we gradually create and replicate and share and prioritize collectively the best ideas amongst us. But it's agent-centric because each person has their own collection. And so you have some people who develop these really amazing collections and then they become leaders simply because of the value of their ideas. Other people like that and copy the ideas more often. And I've been developing a lot of protocols and a lot of content related to this, but the game doesn't actually evolve or work unless it's played. The game only happens when it happens. It only happens when it's played. So I can come up with all the protocols I want, but those protocols will only be coming from me until they're replicated and passed around the network in like a circular economy of ideas. And then they come back to me later in a better, more abstract form, and I can upgrade my own version with the more collective, more abstract language. So that's kind of an overview of all the stuff I'm talking about, is like we can build this amazing movement where there's no center, but there's a huge number of highly coordinated people. Going back to the beginning of how I got involved with the team, the scaling problem we had with trying to do these peer-to-peer check-ins is still a problem. Like you can see it's a bit of a problem even in this meeting where we have 7 people, and it took a lot longer to get through the beginning part. And we didn't even get everyone's words out. You know, we probably could all write 7 cards. We could probably all write 20 cards, but we don't have the capacity for that technologically. And we don't have the time in one meeting. And we also don't have the technology to do this asynchronously offline highly effectively. We almost do. So what we need to make the team protocols function autonomously, or to make whatever you want to call type of protocols function autonomously, is all we need is like a Holochain based post Facebook social network with the ability to have like cards or objects that we can pass back and forth to each other and then prioritize collectively. It's only like 3 or 4 features, and it's not that complicated. And then we can start the process of synchronizing protocols, and it'll become more and more programmatic over time until it's something like you have your post Facebook profile or generalized like Holon environment of Holochain, and you'll add a new snap-in. You'll add a new snap-in for each meta organization that you join. So like you'd be able to add a snap-in for joining like an agricultural guild, and then you would have access to all these protocols related to permaculture. Or you could add a snap-in for a teachers guild, and you'd have all these protocols for sabotaging the standardized testing system that have been passed around between teachers, for example. So that's basically it. Is like we're really, really close to having this amazing technology that will create this rollout of activism autonomously that won't be able to be stopped, and it will be rapidly accelerating. So I'm really excited about the possibilities for decentralized organizing and taking some of the coherence holding that we all have to do off of our own plates and crowdsourcing it in a way that's not coercive at all. So it's really exciting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions before we move on to the next section? Maybe I'll answer up to 3 questions if people want.
In the next part, I think I'm going to be, addressing some of the issues, maybe questions, but yeah.
I guess just one comment that popped into my head, the visual of some of what you were describing, particularly the sort of containers with different units, almost made me think of like playing card games or something like Magic the Gathering or something, where we would pre-prepare sort of decks that we intend to use with multiple different people, and that we would show up kind of ready with those decks to play.
Precisely. And this is the real Magic the Gathering. Magic the Gathering has prepared the ground for the whole world to get this game, especially people who already do that. And this is a hyperstitious game, like the game that's emerging. And the word I have for players who have a deck are deckers. It sounds cool. It's like cyberpunk. Any other comments or questions?
Well, oh, sorry. I was going to say one more for me. When you said decker, it made me think of the game Shadowrun, which is something I played.
That's why I have that association, cyberpunk.
I think in order to, one of the main focal points in order to spread this concept is, once again, going back to what we said in the meeting before we came in here, is like, how can we create this concept to be universal? And then giving them an ideas, like you can call yourself deckers or this or this or this or this, and they have like 10 different options, or you can choose your own. I think that this is kind of where we can really start to reach critical mass, which is really important with what we're doing. And still like, offering the creative expression that came with it.
Great. Yeah, and we'll be able to build a renaming Holochain app where you'll be able to rename almost anything from your personal perspective, but still have it linked with the collective object. And you could call this the plurinominality protocol. I'll take one more comment or question. Yeah.
One further point, I shared a link in the chat. It's actually from Emerging Leader Labs, which is a metacurrency project, and it's this thing called game shifting that as we learn different games together, then we'll get faster at sort of starting and polymorphing between the different games as we kind of hold them together.
Excellent. Cool. And Jim, I think you were going to say something, and then we'll move on to your section too.
Yeah. I guess what I was going to say was that we're looking to integrate MetaMaps into the social ledger, and I see this as a great space for realizing this game with technology that we have today, which is really what the social ledger is about. It's a scaffolding of what we use today, and the social objects that are between us. Let me share my screen briefly. Now this.
Yeah, go ahead. Go on with your next section. Yeah, go ahead and just continue on into your next section. I agree, and I want to work with Robert to play and develop protocols for doing the glass bead game with this, with MetaMaps. Yeah,
well,
and
with this list of activities, for example, in the Dig Life crosslink, has a goal. It has link, and it has several activities, which I've either checked or committed some level of effort, from some to sweating, this is my current sweat level here, which but this list of things is sort of corresponds to our list of activities here. And when we look at the activities, we can see them within the context of the channel that they're in, or the team they're in, and we can see by the size of the circles the level of commitment to them. This is sort of gives an ordering of the people's desire to participate in that activity, or be represented in that activity. And so this is in the Dig Life crosslink channel team circle, which is part of the Holochain community. And we can see that there's governance issues here. Still not many people participating in the channel. Oh, that's the crosslink again. But we should see all the channels where people have used the /dig command within the Holochain. And then we can back out. We can look at all of the organizations. DAO has a lot of activity here. A lot of it is in the identity domain, and see what activities are going on and what people are doing. We can go over to the lab where we're working on the social ledger itself. and the Holochain community, for example, the activities that they're doing there. And this is
Sorry to
all.
interrupt, but could everyone mute your mics except Jim? Because there's some weird sound, and I'm not sure if it's his mic or someone else's.
I'm not sure either. So this sort of can be applied to the game, and once we have the MetaMaps interface, it would all be very very cool. Right now, we have the /dig command, which is integrated in the communication environment, and dig help gives you all the commands. And you can see there's goals, documents, links, actions, norms, jobs, and contracts.
Hey, Jim, what is the timeline on that? Or Robert, as far as MetaMaps being integrated?
We haven't gotten a development team set up yet. I'm certainly willing to participate in work studies to get that done. Our first step is that actually we're just trying to run the existing Mattermost integration with MetaMaps or the Slack integration in first on Slack, then in Mattermost, and then link it more tightly. So that's a ways down the road, unless we find some developers who want to jump on the bandwagon.
Yeah, well, I have some developers that are wanting to do whatever it takes to make the new system happen, and so I've got a team of about 5 or 6 people in total, and I would like to discuss what is needed and see the possibilities there, because I think there's some open possibility for that to happen.
The other thing we have is what we call a dashboard, and this will be improved to give you all the functionality of the social ledger without Mattermost. And we, plan integrations with Discord and Telegram and other communications where the work is being done, to put the social ledger into those environments. Now I'm not getting any tiles here. I don't know why.
Jim, click on the domains up there in the left corner. There's something new's been added there.
Yeah, these buttons showed up today. I mean, this is under active development.
Well, but if you click on that, you will get, I think, what you're looking for.
Well, this gives me all of the domains.
Oh, okay.
Okay. In other words, we get down here to Holochain, and we can get back to the
Awesome.
for some reason, I don't see this circle in here. I guess we can go into anything here just to show the, what's this Holochain up here? Dig Life Cross-String. How come it's a different color, and how come it's not with the other Holochains? It should be alphabetical, I think. But we can see we have 3 activities in that circle. Now, if we click on a link to a document, we get taken to that document. If we click on the Mattermost, the channel here, we get taken into that communication channel to where the work is being done, and it won't have to be Mattermost eventually, but investigate private holochain. Social ledger doc, something missing here. But let me go back here and just show that if we have them, we don't have many different types or categories of activities, but we can look at just the actions. Let's go back to domains. I think I confused this again. Let me choose something with a lot of stuff in it. I didn't really plan to give a demo here, but if I...
Cool, and let's wrap this part up in about 3 minutes if you can, because we have only 7 minutes scheduled and we can shut down after that.
Yeah. So I will dispense with the demonstrations. But I'm excited about that. And the link here is toward the universal social ledger object structure. And it's really about how we construct the objects around us and how we give them behaviors by creating a topic, okay, as in we have here, if by creating a topic, we've created a language within the circle of social objects. And, you know, in this case, we would probably want to link to a collaborative document where we worked on the decentralizing an organization. And my point, my reaction there is that because, you know, everybody is king in the social ledger. Anybody can add an activity. Anybody can change anything. So we have top-down defining of the organization, and we have everybody going in and saying, oh, well, there's no organization here. Anybody can add organization by adding activities, and they get momentum by people committing to those activities and provide direction, and then they take action on the activities, and the actions and the history of actions is on the social ledger. Well, you know, it's part of the social ledger, the activity on a channel, and there's, you know, in essence, you know, the activities become a channel where we and I lost my tabs here, but where we, you know, have a tagline or name of an activity which is self-defining. We're defining the language of our social objects, and then we perform actions on it, which gives it a history, and we can parameterize the history of activities to repeat them and build structures. And then finally we have events where we can say when something happens on a channel, when there's some pattern, do something. So we have a reactive environment where we're defining behaviors and conditions, and ultimately orchestrating our group processes. So I guess the point
is that what you're trying to tell your
is that the social ledger is something that's a concept. It's something much bigger than the big life thing, and we have a skeleton here, which is useful in itself, but it's only a beginning. And it's something that we want to apply, cooperate on the protocols for the social objects.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And yeah, the everyone is kings thing is exactly analogous to the team and the decentralized organizing stuff I was talking about, and the protocols part as well. And we're talking about maybe moving social ledger, eventually having it be a Holochain app. And then it would be much more polynomial.
Yes, that's our goal, is to put it on Holochain. And
Great.
we have, you know, the identity, the decentralized identifiers are essentially our first task. And
yeah, I want to add my emphasis to this. That this is why I moved Jim's strongly typed, strong pseudo-anonymous, unique, self-sovereign identity up, because if we had any developers right now, I feel like some of them would be working on this problem.
Yeah,
We're working on identity in Holochain too.
The social ledger is a record of the things we say and do together. And this really defines our identity and our reputation, is this history. So,
hey, sorry.
Where are we?
Yeah, let's close this meeting. Sorry, we were just ordering pizza. Yeah, thank you all so much for coming. In terms of the glass bead game, if you read the befriendlement stuff, we're not doing the shutdown procedure. We're instead going to pause the game right here. I'll make a note of like which cards we did, and I think in a third column. And I might also add 1 point to all of the remaining things, so that when we pick this up later, we can see that those have all been around for one game. So we can see the age of cards. And so we'll have a sense of what we should prioritize in the future. I think we may or may not be able to use the same tab. We might want to make a new tab next time. And I want to do this game as often as possible. And I think, does 30 minutes after the time we started today work for everyone? That's 7:30 p.m. Central European time.
Yeah, sure.
Great. Okay, cool. So I'll start planning more large games at this time, and then I'll do the smaller games I've been doing with people, just 1 or 2 people, about 4 hours ago. Well, 5 hours ago now, is when I've been doing afternoon games for me, afternoon. Great. So yeah, I think this is really interesting. It worked really well. Thank you so much for reading those rules and trying out this like meeting kind of open agenda way of playing. And we can continue to like synthesize our stuff into larger and larger constructs as we continue. Anything else anyone wants to add before we go?
Check out my card.
Check out what?
Check out my cards.
Your cards, yes. Your links, yeah, we will.
Cool. I also wanted to add, I guess, look in our current Glassbead game channel, and I'll share a link so that you can join MetaMaps and give it a try, because I'll probably maybe schedule a Glassbead game as well, just so we could play with using that as a game board. So if you're interested in that, or even just giving MetaMaps a try, then watch for that link.
Great.
Sounds fun.
Oh, and I want to give a plug for Amber's project as well, is building, this was her card, but I can just briefly plug it, is she wants to build like a universal meta-organizational kind of directory of all of the different projects, all of the different movements, and all the best concepts in each field as a single accessible public website. And that's what we're moving towards, and that's what she's building on with her team of developers, most likely.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Great. Thank you so much for coming, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Also, I would love the recording of this also. Maybe you can post that somewhere where I can download it.
Bye, everyone.
You're muted. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
I'll put it on YouTube, but it'll be unlisted.
Sure, that's fine. Thank you. And post the link in the organizers channel or the Decentral Class Bead game channel.
I would have liked to make it public, but people left already. We can't ask.
We can ask in the channel. And it sounded like, yeah, we can ask in the channel.
Okay, great.
I
Thanks so much, Jim.
approve.
Me too.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.